The outstanding engagement of the war was off the island of Nevis, February 9, 1799. In a heavy sea, the French frigate Insurgente had lost her main topmast. Captain Barrault was escaping to the cover of St. Eustatius. The Constellation, Commodore Truxtun, overtook and forged ahead of her antagonist, raking her several times. After more than an hour's engagement, the Insurgente struck her colors. The French fired too high, but the Americans were able to hit between wind and water. Superiority in gunnery was to stand Americans in good stead.
Yes, it's mighty handy for a Navy to know how to shoot.
Southwest of Guadalupe, February 1st, 1800, the Constellation again proved herself. For 5 hours, she exchanged broadsides with the heavier gunned Vengeance. Commodore Truxtun had a well-organized and a well-trained ship. He was near victory when the Constellation lost her mainmast and the Vengeance escaped over the horizon.
Well, how did the war come out?
Besides these frigate battles, our armed merchant vessels had hundreds of engagements with French privateers. But late in 1799, the government of France changed. The Directory fell. Napoleon Bonaparte was made first consul. Facing trouble in Europe, he wished to reach a settlement with America. A treaty was ratified in 1801.
And that closed a war that wasn't a war, an undeclared one. Well, did we learn anything?
Yes, the ships and men were battle-hardened for the struggle that followed with the Barbary corsairs. The Barbary states stretched along the northern coast of Africa.
Arabs, Moors, Turks, Mohammedans, most of them.
The Barbary states had practiced piracy for centuries. They sought plunder and captives to be held for ransom. They were experts at boarding and hand-to-hand fighting.
Why didn't the nations get together and stop them?
Because the rulers of Europe distrusted each other, they would not make a combined effort against the corsairs. The Barbary rulers were quick to take advantage of a young, weak nation like the United States. In accordance with time-honored practice, tribute was expected as a price for peace. As early as 1786, Thomas Jefferson realized diplomacy was helpless unless a navy was created and used. Protection money, a price for peace. A treaty with Algiers in 1796 cost the United States nearly $1 million, including the gift of a new frigate. Peace with Tunis cost over $100,000, and Tripoli about $56,000. But the Pasha of Tripoli thought unprotected American trade too tempting. He repudiated the treaty and demanded $250,000 immediately and a yearly payment of $20,000.
Didn't the United States say no to that?
Indeed we did, and war was declared by Tripoli May 10, 1801. About June 1st, 1801, Commodore Richard Dale's squadron left Hampton Roads. The President, the Philadelphia, Essex, and Enterprise. Dale cruised along the Barbary coast with a show of force. But 4 ships were not enough for an effective blockade of Tripoli. This force was enlarged by Commodore Richard Morris, the Constellation, Chesapeake, Adams, New York, and John Adams. But still not enough for the blockade. Their duties included convoying and showing the flag off Algiers, Tunis, and Morocco. And they replenished at Gibraltar. Soon to be given command of the Mediterranean squadron was a man who left a lasting imprint on the Navy, Commodore Edward Preble, who arrived on station in the Constitution. Little known to his officers at first, he was a strict disciplinarian. Born in the state of Maine, he'd fought in the Revolution. Preble was a great leader. He was firm. He had fighting spirit. He had character. A commander passes on these qualities. His officers were well schooled. They were given high standards and were in themselves great commanders with the Preble fighting spirit. Two serious obstacles were ahead. Trouble with Morocco across from Gibraltar. The Sultan of Morocco saw that the American ships, at Preble's orders, were cleared for action.
So he up and changed his mind.
He renewed the Treaty of 1786 with no further demands on the United States. Bad luck here with the Philadelphia. She had been sent ahead to blockade Tripoli. Chasing an enemy craft close inshore, she hit an uncharted reef.
Ran aground, eh? What did the skipper do to get her off?
Well, Captain Bainbridge laid all sails aback, tried to lighten ship. He cut away her foremast, cast off her anchors, jettisoned many of her guns, but kept some to fight with. After 4 hours, Bainbridge had to surrender. The enemy floated the Philadelphia and brought her in triumphantly. The Pasha of Tripoli was pleased. He held the Philadelphia's officers and crew for an enormous ransom. But Commodore Preble was not pleased. The powerful American ship was now turned against him. He had only the frigate Constitution of equal metal to meet her. He decided to destroy the Philadelphia. Lieutenant Stephen Decatur, Jr., commander of the Enterprise, volunteered to head an expedition to enter an enemy harbor and capture and burn a large warship. This called for volunteers. Aboard the Enterprise, every officer, man, and boy stepped forward. He selected 5 officers and 62 men. A Sicilian pilot, Salvatore Catalano, knew the harbor. They set out in a captured Tripolitan ketch with Mediterranean rig, renamed the Intrepid. Boldly, they sailed into the enemy harbor. A plan of attack had been carefully worked out and rehearsed. They would capture the Philadelphia by a united rush. They would then split into details to set her afire. 100 yards away, they were hailed. Catalano, the pilot, answered. He claimed that a storm had stripped them of anchors and requested permission to tie up alongside. The breeze gave out. Becalmed, 20 yards away from the heavy guns of the frigate. Almost alongside.
Eternal, they did it!
It was called a bold and daring act. This was from a British admiral, the great Lord Nelson. Decatur was promoted to captain and presented with a sword by a grateful Congress.
Yep, he rated it.